Welcome, everyone. I just want to thank you for just taking a little bit of time out of your day to join us so we can give you an overview. One question we get asked is, what does Pure Edge actually do? And we're actually a private operating foundation. And what we do is we are, on one side of our house, we provide direct professional development and services and resources to school districts and state agencies. And on the other side, we are also a funder, and we fund national organizations. So full disclosure, we are a funder of CASEL as well. They're one of our greatest collaborators and colleagues, I think, just in terms of supporting SEL nationally. So we want to make sure we share that with you as well. We've served about 100 school districts and state agencies over the course of the last 7 years, and we are continuing to serve as we move forward. But before we actually get started with any of the other content and sort of just sharing our own backgrounds, I want to just make sure that you know why we're here today. It's just a reminder for us when we talk about SEL and flourishing is that our head and heart are always connected, and they're never disconnected, even though I think over the course of time, there have been many, many things trying to distract humanity from just focusing on our head and heart. One thing that we do intentionally do is actually partner with world-class universities. We've partnered with Stanford University as far as researching the curriculum that we have that's open source on our website, the Pure Power curriculum and all of our brain breaks. And so they've done their research study there. And then we've also partnered with the University of Virginia. We're part of their funders collaborative for a project called the Compassionate Schools Project that they've actually been researching and testing out and developing curricula with Jefferson County Public Schools in Louisville, Kentucky. So I just wanted to share the context of why we're here today. So with that, I want to also let you know that one of the things that we take pride in is actually finding great collaborators and partners who are doing something a little bit different in the SEL space. So right now, I just want to go ahead and share a little video. I'm just going to have it's a couple of minutes long, and we're going to just go ahead and let you watch, and you can let us know afterwards. We're just gonna have a little bit of an interactive dialogue. Okay.
Hi, Radha. किती डास आहे रे इथे दिमाग खराब तू डास ऐसा वाटत नाही ठीक आहे स्मेल येतोय आता पण एवढं लागेल थोडं वाईट
So I wanted to just share that with you, and we're going to just have you take a look. It's a video from an organization that we love called betterworlded.org. And there's more videos there. But here's my question for you. After watching the clip, what are you curious about? And start with, I wonder, right? So what are you curious about? And start with, I wonder. If you feel like you want to share in the Q&A, please go ahead and feel free to just, what are you curious about after watching that video? What do you wonder about? I'll just give you a minute or so to just share any of your thoughts about the video, what it makes you think of, what it makes you wonder, what are you curious about? And if you could just put that into the Q&A box, if any of you are willing to share, that would be great. I wonder what was created. I wonder what they were building. I wonder where they learned to build that AC unit. I wonder what they're making. I wonder if it's a school project. What are they creating and for what purpose? I wonder how the children are connected. I wonder what led to the project undertaking that they were creating. Great. And I wonder what, and I think, and thank you for just participating. One of the reasons why we wanted to start with the video is because we wanted to start with an open mind, so curiosity before judgment. And so I think one of the things that we're really trying to figure out is how do we actually intentionally practice things that make us much more curious. And I share that with you because right now, everyone's living through a post-pandemic, I think the political climate, just the sort of extremes and polarization that we're all experiencing, trying to figure out different ways in which we can implement a strategy or something that's SEL related that allows us to stay curious without judgment and really start that wondering process. So we just wanted to open up this SEL component with you. The other reason we do this is because we know that the neuroscience is really clear. How we think is affected by how we feel. So even that moment when they're excited, right? I had that feeling of sort of elation that they were so excited that their project was finished. It actually changes the way I view certain things and the way that humans deal with their feelings coming in from a good place and a positive and sort of energetic, joyful place versus something that's particularly negative. So why am I showing you all this? Why does it matter? For us at Pure Edge, we've actually been focusing on school stress prior to the pandemic for the last 8 years. And in fact, one of our great sort of people that we've had the great fortune to work with is Dr. Mark Greenberg, who is also one of the founders of CASTLE, one of the originals. But we read a paper from him that was really talking about school stress and the impact. And it was a research brief from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. That actually changed the scope of what we did and how we did it. We really wanted to focus on what school stress was doing. Particularly, I know we ask a lot of teachers and talk about what they can do, for the students, but we really intentionally focused on the adults and really started to think about what is impacting them out in the space. So based on his research brief, Dr. Greenberg has been instrumental in actually shifting how we view what we do for schools. And the other piece we do know is that the stress is real for principals, superintendents, and administrators. And I think all of the literature that's coming out right now is really attuned to that. That's why we're particularly interested in SEL and how it can impact human flourishing and all the ways in which we do know that, I think, especially for the mental health, for students, for adults, and really thinking about what the environment is doing to us physically. So take away the role of the teacher, the administrator, anything else, but just you as a human being right now. I just want you to think about where you are, that you're joining us today. Where do you feel stress in your body? And if you'd like to go ahead and put in the Q&A, you're welcome to do so. But mostly what we end up finding out is where you feel stress, you can identify it very quickly. It could be in your neck, your jaws, your joints, your back, your feet. Go ahead and share that out and let us know where you feel stress in your body physically. It's very easy to identify. It probably came very quickly to you. Now I'd like to know is where you feel joy in your body. When you are joyful, where do you feel it? And go ahead and put that in the Q&A if you feel compelled to share. The reason why it's important for us to focus on the joy and the reason why we show the film at first is because we do know that there are so many other impacting factors, and we'll go over that in just a minute. We know there's stress and there's stressors. We know there's good stress and bad stress. And one of the things we do know that we have benefits and detriments of stress. It's sort of right at the peak of what happens to us when we are stressed, when we're bombarded by stressors. The benefits, right? It gets us out of bed, allowed you to come to our webinar. And the detriments are really that there's no relief in sight. It could start to make us sick and weakens our immune system. We do know that there's an optimal amount of stress, but with everything that's happening, with all of the factors that are happening in our country right now, maybe in your own neighborhoods and communities, we do know that it can have a very, very long-term negative impact on how we survive as just as a physical human being. We know that the stress can accumulate. We know that if you can all imagine having and carrying an imaginary backpack, every time you have a stressor, you can think about how those stressors are like bricks in your backpack, just weighing you down. We call that allostatic load. And Dr. Carrion from Stanford University really talks about how that allostatic load, if it's not taken care of in a way, once you start to feel it, you need to start reversing the impacts of it by trying to figure out how to remove those bricks. We do know that that allostatic load can also have an impact, especially for educators. One of our board members at Castle, Dr. Kimberly Shernitt-Reichel, did a research study and found that teachers that were high burned out, stressed, self-reported anxiety, that the students in their classrooms actually had higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, when they tested them for cortisol. So we do know that stress is contagious. We also know that joy is contagious as well. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we also know part of the reason why we think about, how we interact, why SEL is so important, is really that we have these biases and we know that they're inherent, right? We have them. They're just wired that way. We are human beings built for negativity. We were wired for survival. But we do know that it's intentional practice to allow us to take the things that are in our environment and then flip it so that we are actually starting to think about ways in which we can take that negativity and actually make it into a positive experience. Why does that matter? We know that the negativity can actually create these excessive worries, anxiety, frustration, aggression, and judgment. And you might very likely see those playing out right now in school settings across the country, where you work, where you live, all of the negativity, it's all the media bombardment and really trying to, they capitalize on that very neuroscience-based piece where the negativity just sort of drives how we interact. It can also impact how we actually are in relationships, which is really sort of the SEL skills. If we are having a negativity bias or we're in that mode, it typically takes 5 good interactions to offset a bad one. And I don't know if you know this, but in the research, they talk about it's people work harder to avoid losing $100 than actually making $100. And then we all know, I think we've all experienced it, that painful experiences are much more memorable than pleasurable ones, and they stick with us for a very long time. There was a study by 2 gentlemen that wrote for the Harvard Business Review, Jim Lohr and Tony Schwartz. And one of the things they've done is actually they've focused on studying high performance athletes. And what they found from high performance athletes, which will make sense, they talked about how much athletes train for their big event. And so they wanted to see the comparison, the research data from the high performance athletes and professional athletes to corporate athletes, which I believe every one of you are. You have your own little business, whether it's in the school, whether it's in your classroom, or maybe even running the business of your home, but your corporate athlete status. So what they basically found is anyone who's running a company basically spends about the majority of their time. They run and perform constantly. What they found from high performance athletes is they spend a large portion, 75, 80% of their time training for these, big games. They found that corporate athletes, the ones that are running companies and doing different kinds of things, are actually spending very little time training for physical training. How do you actually take care of your body to help you flourish? And what they found is it's not the stress that depletes us. It's actually what our reserves are. How you take care of your human body, how you take care of your heart and mind actually impacts how you can deal with stress, which leads us to the science of resilience. Dr. Carrion is very clear about the science of resilience and the support factors that are needed. You need the presence of a caring person. You need to be able to really engage in creative activities. You need the ability to self-soothe, have emotion regulation, have perseverance, and have cognitive flexibility. Those are sort of the basic blocks of resilience. And I think that part is where we all come into play, educators that sort of wrap around our arms around the schools, our students, and each other as our colleagues. And that we do know that resilience can be cultivated. It doesn't mean that we have the absence of difficulty or distress, and resilience isn't a trait, right? It can be acquired, and it's actually a process. So we want to make sure that we also share what the misconceptions about resilience are as well, particularly with children. And you're all in the education space. If it's, there's been this misconception that children are born resilient. That's actually not true. That's why we spend so much time making sure that we provide these supports and provide caring adults in situations when it's possible to really be able to sort of give them all the opportunities to build these components up. So those are really misconceptions about the resilience. Again, these are all taken from the research and from the writings of Dr. Victor Carrion from Stanford University. So we do know this: what happens during the acute and chronic stress phases matters for who recovers. That's the piece of resilience. It's an intentional practice. So we do know, just as a reminder, that you need a caring person, at least one. Emotion regulation, cognitive flexibility, and creativity. These components actually make resilience a dynamic process and things that you can actually be able to start to build as a human being. So we've broken it down so that resilience is a 4-letter word. It's all love. It sounds corny and cliche, I know, but it actually comes with some content. So the L is for laughter. The literature is really clear that part of resilience is being able to have laughter in your life. That ability to laugh, find joy is very important. Also having a level of optimism. I don't mean toxic positivity in any way, but just being optimistic. Optimism brings hope, and hope brings change. And so one of the things that we want to continually support are organizations and partners that bring a little bit of optimism and hope into the space. Also, it's very clear: venue. Changing your venue will also help with your resilience. If you feel stuck in a place, if you feel, especially for students, if they are sitting in a dark space trying to, study and they're not getting anywhere, the venue change is actually incredibly important. And the simplest thing that you can do is actually go outside. And the last one, E, is emotion regulation. Being able to regulate our emotions also leads to building resilience. And those things we do know from Dr. Mark Brackett, who's also on the board of CASEL. He's really talked about the 3 most important aspects of learning, is how we are all here together as educators. Is attention, focus, and memory. They're all controlled by our emotions, not by our cognition. And because of those 3 things, one of the things that we do as an organization is we love to partner with agencies, with universities, and people who embody sort of that whole realm of how we make the world a little bit better incrementally. So with that, I am so grateful to introduce Dr. Alexis Harris from UVA. She's actually one of the leads of the Compassionate Schools Project. And just fun fact, she actually is very closely tied to Dr. Mark Greenberg. His quote to me, Alexis, I want you to know, I saw him at our Castle Board meeting. His quote to me is, Alexis, she is the real deal. She is the best. And I mean, she's just extraordinary. So I want you to know that that's what he told me, completely unrelated to this, but I wanted to share that out loud so that folks here can also know how great you are too. So with that, I'm gonna let you take it away. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Chi. Actually, Chi, can you keep sharing your screen? Because I'm having, when I downloaded the slides, it messed up the format.
Oh, it's because we have a really fancy font, Alexis.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you so much. And thanks for sharing that quote from Mark to start this out with a smile. So I'm really happy to be here and to be able to tell you all a little bit more about the Compassionate Schools Project. The Compassionate Schools Project, or CSP, is a partnership between the University of Virginia and Jefferson County Public Schools in Louisville, Kentucky, and with support from a lot of different people and organizations who've made this possible, including Pure Edge. And CSP is really an innovative model for promoting social and emotional learning and health and wellness skills in an integrated curriculum. The curriculum is called Flourish, and it's for K-5 students. And it has been recently tested in a large randomized control trial in Louisville, Kentucky. And we have some promising results to be able to share with everyone soon. So the curriculum is really built around 4 different components, the primary one being the CASEL core SEL competencies. And those are framed within an exploration of compassion. That is an overarching theme for the whole curriculum. And the curriculum also integrates mindful movement and physical activity, as well as mindful awareness practices and attitudes and skills for healthy eating and developing healthy habits. When we implement CSP, we know that it's important to provide this universal tier 1 curriculum for students, but I also do that within a set of supports for educators and staff. So we also provide in our current model professional development and ongoing support, not just for the teachers who are implementing the curriculum, but also for other faculty and staff to help promote a culture of well-being within the schools. So one question that I often hear is why integrate mindfulness with social and emotional learning? And I think there are some really good reasons to do this, including that mindfulness is really a foundational skill. And when we integrate this with social and emotional learning, we believe it can really enhance all domains of SEL. And with our approach, integrating compassion throughout the curriculum has also been really supportive of meaning making and engagement for students. Students are really excited to engage with ideas of compassion and how they can help others and how they can make a contribution to their communities. And also integrating mindful movement brings a really strong focus into body awareness, and that's another way to enhance students' learning. So this is just a general overview of the CSP Flourish curriculum. All of the units are structured around an SEL competency area, and they integrate mindful movement and mindful awareness throughout. So we start with an introduction that is rooted in compassion, and this is a really engaging way to start to think about what it means to take care of ourselves and others within our community. And then we move through other SEL themes like self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, community, and then apply that finally with a compassion project. And so this curriculum, the way that it was designed and implemented in Louisville, takes the approach of a special area class that students are attending a couple of times a week. And the way that the curriculum is built is so that all grades are engaged with the same skill area at the same time. And they move through the same units in every grade level, but with different content. And this allows all learners within the school to be reviewing and developing knowledge and skills around the same areas and developing similar language at the same time. And the curriculum is broken down into 3 different grade bands, and then there are differentiation opportunities within each of those. It's okay to go on. Yeah. So I wanted to give you a little a preview of some of the content from a few of the units. The first one being self-awareness. And so just to see how these different elements come into play within that theme. So for self-awareness, the social and emotional learning focus here is on how emotions are experienced and expressed and developing a positive self-concept. And there's various activities through which these skills are learned and practiced. And then specific mindful awareness skills are built in to connect with self-awareness, including things like noticing the breath and the body and being able to monitor attention. And then this also comes through in the movement and physical activity that that learners are engaged in to build body awareness. And I wanted to share, just related to self-awareness, I was actually just talking to one of our really experienced teachers, and something she said that I thought was really meaningful was that she said, I think the most important thing that we teach students through CSP is to accept themselves and to like themselves just as they are. And she said, of course, we're encouraging growth and learning, but we teach them to honor themselves where they are right now and to know that each person experiences things differently, and that's okay. So then when we move into our unit on self-management, the social and emotional learning activities are really focused on things like pausing and practicing strategies to respond mindfully to the emotions and other experiences, and also developing a growth mindset. And this shows up in mindful awareness practices that are focused on monitoring and directing attention, and to also be able to use the breath as a tool for embodied self-regulation in different settings, and not just for calming down, but also for things like experiencing joy and laughter and building energy. And this shows up in the movement focus with activities that are focused on things like balance and challenges to develop a really embodied physical self-regulation. And this example is from Unit 5, which is focused on relationship skills. And I love the way that when we start to move into relationship skills and community, we're really able to take mindfulness and compassion into the interpersonal realm. And so here we're focusing on things like friendship skills, communication, and responding to conflict, and also learning interpersonal mindfulness practices, things like mindful listening and a kind mind practice for others. And with movement, this shows up in applying those skills in partner activities and developing things like partner agreements and communicating about safety as they move through partner poses and partner challenges. So these pictures are from classes where students are going through a moving story time. And this is a really key feature of our kindergarten and first grade curriculum. And this is a really fun and creative way that students are able to kind of use their imagination, their minds, and their bodies to step into the experiences of the characters in the story and to really embody the experiences that they're having and practice the skills that they're learning. And this is a great way to really activate those skills for our youngest learners. And then these photos just show some examples of community compassion projects. So in our final unit of the curriculum, this is really an applied unit that can use project-based learning for students to identify needs within their communities and then to work together with each other and with their teachers to develop some kind of a project to address that need and to be able to bring compassion into action and to make a contribution to their community. And here I wanted to share a quote from a teacher who said, I always tell students that compassion is caring for yourself and others by taking action. A 5th grade student recently took action. A new student had joined their class who did not understand English. And that 5th grader went home and asked his mother for help to learn her language so that he could communicate with the new student. And he's taken it upon himself to learn some of that language and develop a friendship with the new student. So that was just an individual action, but you can see how taking compassion into action can then translate into these bigger projects, like where students built a food pantry on their school grounds, where they went out into the community to play music for others, sent cards to folks that were in nursing homes, and packed supply bags for members of the community that were experiencing houselessness. And these are just a few examples.
Alexis, I see a
Yeah.
goat. I see a goat.
Yeah. So, I'm embarrassed to say I'm not actually sure what I don't remember what the project was specifically with the goat, but there have been definitely some projects where kids were really excited about doing something related to animals. Sometimes that involved bringing therapy animals
Okay.
into schools or other settings, and sometimes it involved doing care for animals, but I think this might actually be a therapy animal.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And so I wanted to just share with you all, Alexis and her team had been working so hard with really trying to get the curriculum up and running. So I wanted to answer a question that came in the Q&A, Alexis. They wanted to know if they could purchase the curriculum. One of the reasons why we actually partner with organizations is so that you actually don't have to pay for the curriculum. We're going to make it open source, so it's going to be downloadable and ready to use. So what we want to do is try and take care of any of the financial barriers that might come with complications, for school systems and state agencies. And so the curriculum will be open source and ready for use, but not until January. But because you're on this webinar and because you chose to join us, you're going to get a preview copy of all the grade bands, K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 of Unit 1. So you'll get that access as well. So Alexis, do you want to go over just a little bit of how it looks in breaking down, and
Yeah.
we'll go over just one lesson at the end.
Sure. Yeah. And we're so grateful to be able to do that. It would be kind of sad for a curriculum that is based around the idea of compassion to be a huge financial burden for schools.
Yes.
So this is a great partnership. So yeah, these are the title pages for those sample units. And Unit 1 is really an introduction to the themes that will show up in the rest of the curriculum and to this idea of compassion. And oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to share, we wanted to give you just a sample of a lesson as well, as soon as Alexis, when we go through this. So go ahead, Les. Sorry.
Sure. So this lesson is a sample of a kindergarten and first grade lesson. And you can see here the introduction to the lesson gives you, short goals and short I can statements that are student oriented, as well as more depth around learning objectives, vocabulary that shows up, and specific practices that'll show up in the lesson. And then there is an introductory kind of routine for all of the classes that is a calming and focusing practice. And this is the first time it shows up, so it's a little bit longer. And then this lesson jumps right into moving story time. And that's kind of the bulk of the lesson, the core activity. And in this story time, learners are introduced to characters that they'll be following throughout the curriculum and throughout the year. And they kind of go on a little adventure with the characters and meet some friends, one of whom is experiencing a need for compassion. And so the characters in the story, through movement and play, go through this experience and then find a way to help the friend who is needing compassion. And so it's a really fun way for students to get moving and engaged, and to really play with their imagination, to think about how they can help that friend. And there is, as you can see, there's really fun illustrations for the movement that's included in the story, and then a lot of it is just really up to the teacher's creativity as well. And and this one includes a game, an active game for the kids, and then it concludes with a rest practice. And the rest practice is just a few minutes at the end of the class, and it's something that in the beginning we thought, a lot of teachers thought that students might be a little bit resistant to taking that time to kind of slow down and rest. But then the overwhelming feedback that we've heard is that students really crave that moment to be able to just slow down, take care of their bodies, and have a moment of rest, especially the older elementary students who really have just such busy days with so much demand that they really crave those few minutes of being able to have that calm and quiet and some time for reflection. And then the lessons all include various teaching tips and differentiation opportunities, as well as a take-home practice for learners.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're probably going to just go into having some general questions that we can answer. But a couple of things I wanted to share with you. If it looks familiar, if you have ever used any Peer Edge materials, one of the beautiful things about our partnership with UVA and just our collaboration is that all of the movement sequences, the majority of them, the characters, you'll see they're actually from the Pure Power curriculum as well. So if you have any access there. Right now, the Compassionate Schools Project Flourish curriculum is really a K through 5 curriculum. So it's elementary. It's been a research in the elementary setting in Jefferson County Public Schools. If you're looking for middle school curriculum, what we found is even in our Pure Power, when we did the study with Stanford University, that middle school, if it's an introduction, they can actually use the 4-5 curriculum. You wouldn't use some of the elementary language, but the actual sequencing of the skills is very appropriate. We've been able to do that with our curriculum as well. If you're looking for high school curriculum, the Pure Edge actually has, the high school curriculum we have on our website has grades 9 through 12. And that actually has some research-based pieces. There's a randomized control trial that actually found that students who participated in the Pure Edge program actually had higher GPAs when they took, in comparison to health and wellness curriculum versus a regular PE. So that's on our website as well. As I shared, all of our resources are open source and free. And so I wanted just to make sure that we reemphasize that. And Emily, if you have, now you can take over the Q&A, but I wanted to make sure that the audience knew that all of the resources that we show and showcase are always going to be open source. We'll never charge for them. And so that's just something that we've committed to as an organization.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. And we actually just had a question come in about getting a lesson sample for your high school curriculum. Is that available on the website?
Yes, on pureedgeinc.org, you can actually sign up for a free curriculum account. You can get access to 1,500 pages of curriculum that you will never use, but you'll have access to. But we like to have that there for you. But we'll have links on the post, this post webinar. There'll be links to all of the websites that we've referenced.
Great. All right. Well, we do have quite a few questions about the curriculum, so we'll dive in. And as they come up for our audience members, feel free to put them out there and we'll get as many answered as we can. So first off, are trauma-informed practices included in the curriculum?
Yes. So we have, it's been really important for us to take a trauma-informed and trauma-sensitive approach, and we also include that in our training. And we believe that the curriculum can be implemented in a way that is trauma-informed and culturally responsive.
That's great. That's such an important aspect. So great to hear that that's in there. We are, or this participant is, a rural school district. Do you feel that the lessons, the Flourish lessons can be integrated with the ruler lessons? How do those two work together?
Yeah, so integrating the specific lessons is probably possible, but I do think the curriculum is in alignment. So what we have done for schools that are already implementing something like ruler or second steps or paths or another curriculum in their classroom settings is we've helped them to create alignment between the two so that they can make those connections and the two can really support each other. And we've included, we've actually done a ruler book study with some of our teachers to kind of help make those connections when they were using that.
Okay, we've got a couple questions coming in again about the timing of when the curriculum is going to be available. So Chi, I think you had said January that it'll be available, and that again, it's available for free. But also, has it just been piloted with Jefferson County Public Schools? Someone's just asking about who else has used the curriculum.
Alexis,
Yes.
This would be a good time to actually brag about the research project. It's the largest randomized control trial in the country.
It is, yes. So we had 45 elementary schools that were included in the randomized trial. So half of those implemented the curriculum, and half of them were in a control group. And we've had thousands of students that were participating and teachers that were participating in that. The curriculum was piloted here and then evaluated in that randomized trial. And then it's also being implemented in Charlottesville, Virginia, in schools there.
Great, that's exciting.
I also wanted to note something that I think is important because it was tested out in schools by real teachers, real classrooms. There was a lot of feedback that UVA, especially Alexis, received. And so I'll just let you know that originally the curriculum was intended to be released a couple of years ago, but based on all of the feedback that the teachers gave about ways to make it better, shorten it, lengthen it in different areas, and just for ease of use, we've just taken the opportunity to revamp the curriculum before it was ever publicly released. And so what you're going to actually get in January for free is the revamped version with lots of teacher feedback. I mean, teacher voice was so critical in making sure that the curriculum was going to be usable in a classroom setting that I think that's just something that I hope that the audience knows, and knows that we were very intentional. UVA especially was very intentional about making sure that all of the feedback was incorporated.
That's great. It's really been road tested by your colleagues. So that's great. So how long does each lesson take? And is the curriculum designed to cover a full school year?
It is designed to cover a full school year. The way that the lessons are set up, they're 50-minute lessons, but we've seen settings where teachers have broken those up into smaller pieces when they didn't have enough time, or kind of adapted for their setting, so we can help with some guidance around that. But the way that it was implemented and tested was in 50-minute lessons, a couple of times a week in a special area class. And of course, that is not going to be the perfect fit for everyone, but we think it is adaptable to different settings and different needs.
And you've sort of answered this question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it anyway. But when during the school day did teachers who piloted it really primarily use the lessons?
So this was in a special area class. So this was taught. So we had there was one teacher in the building, or two teachers that were teaching the class for all of the grade levels, rather than it being within the class, the classroom teachers' responsibilities. We know that classroom teachers have just so many demands on their time. And while we do have some classroom teachers who integrate this content into their classes, the way that we originally implemented and tested it was in a special area rotation. And I didn't answer part of your question, I think, but that it is a full year curriculum.
Okay, great. So with that model of it not being the classroom teachers, we've had some questions just about, PD for implementation. So was it like SEL coaches or school counselors that would get the training on the curriculum?
So our teachers come from various backgrounds. We've had a lot of PE teachers and health teachers, classroom teachers, related arts teachers, a few counselors, and so lots of different backgrounds. And we currently in Charlottesville, the way that it's being implemented in Charlottesville, there are counselors and related arts teachers, as well as classroom teachers who are implementing different components. So we're kind of testing a different model there to be able to provide supports for different ways of implementing the curriculum. And we will have PD available. We will provide some training with the curriculum when it is released, and then we'll have more complete curriculum training available after the curriculum is released for teachers in schools and districts that want to be able to implement the curriculum fully.
One of the things that we are doing and working with UVA on and Alexis's team is to make sure that we have one basic sort of trauma-informed practices training or PD. It's asynchronous. We'll be able to have that. And once they go through that particular piece, just to give an overview and a mindset refresh, it's just to make sure that that is done first, and then the resources can be downloaded. We want to make sure that we're very intentional about how folks access the curriculum, and really knowing intentionally how, the educator, when they come to the space, how important that is. It's really grounded in the fact that we care about the adults who are going to be working with our kids, making sure that they're taken care of as well. So I think that's something that we're very excited about helping support, and that will launch. We'll make sure that we get everyone information on the PD opportunities with the partnership between UVA and Pure Edge. And then we'll also make sure that we give out resources. And like I said, the sample lessons will be available to you. We just ask that you don't duplicate them, but just from coming, we wanted to give you an overview.
Great. I know everyone's going to be super excited to get those. And Alexis, Chi, you just touched on this slightly, but Alexis had mentioned cultivating SEL among the adults in school. So is that part of wrapped into the curriculum that the teachers are reading and accessing, or is that the separate PD that you just referenced?
It's a combination of both, Emily. I think one of the things that we do know is that when teachers actually implement, whether it's the Compassionate Schools project, or the Flourish curriculum, whether it's Pure Edge, when they engage in the practices themselves, they're actually benefiting in terms of actually teaching it, because it's intentionally focusing them. When students are taking a rest, the teachers are also guiding that, any of the movement sequences. So we found that piece sort of inherently leads to, more support for the educators. To answer your question more directly, is there are resources for educator self-care. Alexis has also created a program called Calm. And so that's one of the trainings as well, is to be able to provide, and that's just for the adults. It's not intended to do anything with kids. It's just for the adults and the educators. So we've got lots of different kinds of resources as well.
Yeah, so much support. That's wonderful. Back into the sort of nitty gritty of the curriculum, how many lessons are in each unit, or is each unit one 50-minute lesson?
So there are anywhere from 4 to 8 lessons in each unit. And so over the course of the year, the total number of lessons that are included in the curriculum is about 100 and I think it's about 108.
Wow.
And there's the same number for each grade level.
Okay, great. And Chi, I'm assuming on the website, folks can find information about the CALM program for teachers.
Oh, well, that will have to go to Alexis.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
so actually, to find information about the CALM program for teachers, you can go to the Create for Education website. And that is a website that is focused on teacher resilience and professional development around supporting teachers and staff and administrators' well-being.
Okay, great. And I know we've mentioned a lot of resources, so we will be gathering those up and sharing those in the follow-up email that everybody gets in the next few days. So don't worry if you weren't able to scribble everything down. We'll make sure to share it with you. We've got time for a few more questions. So as part of the pilot, did you gather any parent family reactions and perceptions to the curriculum and to what the students were learning?
Most of the data that we collected was from teachers, and each school kind of handled feedback from parents in their own way. We did get pieces of feedback from parents, and we had some meetings with parents at various schools. And I wish I had it open, but I had there are some really great stories from parents where students were kind of bringing some of this home. And like one parent said that their student had started taking them on, various like adventures at night with one of their young students who was kind of acting out what they were doing and moving story times and getting their parents involved. Other parents mentioned, especially parents, we heard feedback from several parents who had students who were experiencing a lot of anxiety, who said that these tools were really helping them in various settings, like when they were going to the dentist or when they were experiencing some challenges at home.
I think I better do a couple units for that dental anxiety. Those are great stories. And of course, yeah, what they're learning at school, they're going to take home to the families. And that's a great opportunity for the students to be teaching their families some things too. So that's great.
Emily, can I actually just add one thing? I know that there was some questions about high school curriculum or middle school curriculum. And one thing that I will share with you, what we've been able to do with San Diego Unified, we actually worked with high school students, freshmen, and their freshman class, and they learned some strategies, and they went back into their feeder elementary schools and became mentors. And so I know that there was a question about the high school curriculum. The Compassionate Schools Project, the Flourish, will not go into high school at the moment. Just this process has been a very, very long piece, and we want to really make sure that we get the elementary school curriculum out into the places, but it's just an idea of implementation. So if you wanted high school students to even just take a look and maybe get trained on some components, there's an opportunity to do that as well through some just creative teachers that have been able to do a little bit of a, what would they call, a mashup between high school and elementary.
Thanks for sharing that and addressing that comment. All right, we'll take one last question. Do the students come up with their community compassionate projects, or do the teachers decide those, or is it a collaboration?
It is a collaboration, and it depends on the school and the teachers. So in some schools, the compassion projects have been entirely student driven from, the initial kind of problem solving and thinking about what needs are present in the community to how they execute it, who they partner with. And in some schools where it was, just a better fit, there has been more teacher direction. And I think that they can be meaningful in each of those ways, but it is a really great opportunity for really student directed project-based learning.